was not a defeat, it was a drubbing. And yet, nearly 2 months after the Lok Sabha polls, the Congress is still to begin its relief and rehabilitation program. Rahul Gandhi, the Congress Vice President, clearly overcome by campaign fatigue, took a summer break. There was talk of a Chintan Shivar to reflect on the Lok Sabha loss, but this is yet to happen.
Well, I think when you do come to a point where your numbers dwindle, there is a cause for very, very serious introspection.
There should be a cause, but
there is a cause for a very serious introspection. You need to critically look at the governance paradigm over the past 10 years. Take credit for what you've done right. Accept responsibility for what you've done wrong. And then, see as to what the organizational weaknesses also were, and as to whether the synergy between the government and the organization was there or it was missing.
From the looks of it, the Congress is still dealing with the old problem of a reluctant leader. The fact that Rahul did not take up the leader of opposition role, with or without the LOP status, has sent out worrying signals. Senior Congress leaders admit that they would have liked to see Rahul in this role, leading from the front and not the backbenches.
I was very excited by Rahul Gandhi's first speech when we made him the vice president of the party, because that indicated that there was going to be radical change. And he said after Kejriwal's stunning victory in the Delhi elections that the Congress party was going to be changed in ways that we cannot even imagine. And so I'm hoping that whatever churning is going on in the higher or the more close circles of the Congress to the leadership, that it will result in revolutionary changes, because we are in a position that we've never been in before. We are number 3 in a very large number of places. And my brother, with whom I often disagree, but who has a very sharp mind, he pointed out to me at dinner the other day that it's common in Indian democracy and most democracies for the number 2 to become the number 1, but it's unusual for the number 3 to become the number 1. And so the challenge before the party is of such a revolutionary nature, we've never faced this before, that perhaps the solutions that have to be found will also have to be pretty radical.
While Rahul Gandhi has not taken up this role, the choice of the able but dull Mallikarjun Kharge as the opposition leader doesn't seem to excite his colleagues very much. For he certainly is not a very reassuring sign of the radical change congressmen are looking for.
Personally, I've got the greatest regard for Mallikarjun Kharge ji. We've been friends in 1985. But yet, I would have been much happier if Rahul Gandhi ji had taken this role of leadership in the parliamentary party.
I don't think there's any doubt that Rahul Gandhi should have agreed to be leader of the opposition. If you take the line that you're vice president of the Congress party, then by definition you're the number 2 person. If the number 1 person, the president of the Congress party, decides she doesn't want to be leader of the opposition, then it has to be you. And even if you take the line the Gandhis have decided that they will fight on the streets and don't want to be too disturbed by what happens in Parliament, Kharge is a particularly sad choice. I mean, left to myself, I would have suggested someone like Amrinder Singh, somebody who'll go in there and fight. Rahul's not fighting, Amrinder is not fighting, and Kharge is stumbling.
However, let alone sit in the leader's chair, Rahul is not even to be seen in the front benches. He prefers to remain on the back benches, and during Modi's maiden address to the Lok Sabha, he was seen sitting and cleaning his cell phone with the corner of his kurta. Sonia Gandhi, on the other hand, plays a much more participatory role, sitting in the front row, listening to Modi with a wary frown and an occasional shake of an address to the Lok Sabha. He was seen sitting and cleaning his cell phone with the corner of his kurta. Sonia Gandhi, on the other hand, plays a much more participatory role, sitting in the front row, listening to Modi with a wary frown and an occasional shake of her head to show her disagreement. When Modi was speaking, everybody noticed he's sitting in the back benches and he was cleaning his BlackBerry with his kurta. He's not interested in the speech or anything. Even if you don't agree with the guy,
he was not. He did not put earplugs in his ear.
Let's be grateful for that. Now that Rahul has cleaned his cell phone, his party MPs are hoping he'll use it to reach out to them. A Congress party reorganization is on the cards. But the big question really is, will Rahul finally junk his team of laptop toting advisors and reach out to people from the party cadre? Interestingly, the Congress morale seems to be curiously linked to the leader of opposition status. Instead of opposing the government on governance issues, the Congress has spent its initial days in opposition scrambling and lobbying cluelessly for the LOP post, examining both the legal and political options, and then finally knocking at President Pranab Mukherjee's door.
The kind of energy and hard work Congress party is exploring on the need to go to court, if they would have reflected honestly as to how they got reduced to 44, it would have served them better.
I think there are two aspects to this whole leader of the opposition thing, and it's pretty much a recent concept of the last 2 decades. The first is, if you want to oppose the government of the day, you don't really need a designation. You really don't need to be called leader of the opposition. But the way the things are organized now, there are many positions posts, for instance, the head of Prasar Bharati, where 3 people decide, and one of those 3 people often in many of these things is the leader of the opposition. So the argument is, if there is no leader of the opposition, then the whole opposition space goes unrepresented, and constitutionally the government rides roughshod over everything.
All the introspection, it seems, has been left in the hands of a reliable but uninspiring A.K. Antony. Congress leaders have been asked to go and meet Antony in state-wise groups to rehash reasons for their defeat. An exercise that hardly instills confidence in Congress leaders, for they all know what happened to the earlier Antony Committee report that looked into the reasons for the 1998 Lok Sabha loss. At that time too, Antony suggested remedies, but many meetings later, the report was put into cold storage. Post the loss, I have not seen any introspection. We've heard.
Well, I'm told by
Chintan Shivar on the cards.
Well, I share your concern, but that's as an outlier. I'm told that had I been closer to the center of things, then I would have been able to see the very vigorous introspection that is going on. But assuming that such introspection is going on at higher or more core levels, I'm afraid I don't know what it is.
It's been over a month since the Congress lost. There's been no introspection. I mean, we hear that MPs are meeting.
Well,
Mr. Antony,
the
same man who filed
he's talking to everyone.
So what will happen? The poor Mr. Antony report 13 years ago is still gathering dust.
Don't forget, on the basis of Antony Committee report, we won in 2004.
It was not on the basis of Antony Committee report.
Because of the recommendations.
His recommendation was announce candidates well in advance. That you did not do.
That's one of the recommendations. But others we followed.
The poor man himself, a lot of the party workers are saying that giving it to Antony is your version of a GOM. Matlab cold storage.
No, don't say that. Lot of good decisions were taken by GOMs. Don't sort of belittle that.
I'm content to wait until the Antony Committee reports, and presumably thereafter we will have Chintan Shivar or something equivalent to that very quickly. But I caution that even the Antony Committee report with which I was involved, which submitted its report in November 1999, it didn't reach the working committee for about 7 months, and even then in bowdlerized form.
But even now it's not been implemented.
And even now it's not been implemented. You're absolutely right.
What were some of the key points that you had suggested then?
We must have the declaration of candidates made for Parliament 6 months in advance of the anticipated date, and 3 months in advance of the anticipated date for an assembly poll. And that's still not happening. Indeed, we had the fairly humorous situation where with 2 hours to go for the Tamil Nadu nominations to close, Delhi had forgotten to name a candidate for Madras South, for Chennai South. And then frantic phone calls from Satyamurthy Bhavan resulted in somebody being named. Now, I lost very, very badly. I got the far and away the lowest vote I've ever had in 7 elections. But somebody comforted me with the thought that my vote was larger than the votes received by all our 3 candidates in Chennai. Now, if that's the situation to which we've been reduced, it's clear that radical changes will have to be effected.
If precedent is any indicator, there is a strong possibility that Antony's current efforts will meet the same fate as his earlier endeavours. This brings us to the main worry in the opposition camp. Can the Congress make a comeback? And equally important, can Rahul deliver? Some congressmen seek solace in history, resorting to band-aids of hope when the need of the hour is drastic surgery.
I don't think the extent of anger against the Congress is as great, has been as great in 2014 as it was in 1977. There's a lot of anger then. Now I think there's more disappointment. But the result of that anger was for us to still have, I think we were nearly at 200 seats or something. At least we were over 150. And large parts of India, particularly southern India, had stood by Indira Gandhi even then.
Well, let's not forget the fact that there was a time when the BJP had 2 members in the Lok Sabha, and between 85 and 89, from 2 they came up to 88, and by 1991 they came up to 120. So therefore, politics at times can play a very strange hand, and what seems to be the inevitable is totally upturned by events and circumstances as they unfold.
With Rahul still failing to step up, it is left to Sonia Gandhi to provide the leadership once again. She has been active on the LOP status issue, but is hampered both by numbers and the fact that most of the party's articulate leaders are outside parliament. As many as 22 of the 44 Congress MPs in the Lok Sabha don't even speak Hindi, which is fast becoming the language of transacting business in a Modi government. However, Congress leaders are confident that they'll be able to step up the opposition, if not on the floor of the House, then at least in the TV studios.
I have no doubts at all that both inside Parliament and outside Parliament, in the Lok Sabha, in the Rajya Sabha, and in the larger public space, the Congress would be an effective opposition voice. The real opposition or the real discourse, the real debate is in the public space, is in the electronic media, is in the print media. And as I keep telling friends that if Mr. Arvind Kejriwal could actually create a political party virtually out of television studios, so therefore I do not think there is a lack of platforms for the Congress to really be raising issues.
I'm actually a little surprised to find the Congress citing the example of Arvind Kejriwal as a role model. The better role model for this avatar of the Congress is Indira Gandhi in 1977 to 1979. She wasn't even an MP, she got elected, she was expelled. But she was a very, very effective opposition leader because she fought the battle from the streets. There was Mrs. Gandhi and there was a very thug-like son of hers called Sanjay Gandhi on the side. Now, if, I assume Rahul Gandhi is not thug-like, so that's the difference. But if Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi were to emulate that parallel, there is a precedent within the family. They don't actually need to steal ideas from Arvind Kejriwal. They can just look within the Congress legacy and learn how to oppose.
Moreover, the Congress is also getting waylaid in its attack. Price hike is the people's issue. Yet it took a while for the Congress to get its act together and take on the BJP on this, wasting its time instead fighting for the LOP status. In fact, the BJP has successfully distracted the Congress from mounting an effective opposition by diverting its attention from the government to its own personal problems. Serving IT notices to Sonia Gandhi on the National Herald case, for instance, took the Congress focus away from attacking the rail budget and instead focused on defending its party leadership.
The National Herald case was filed over a year ago by Subramaniam Swamy. And at that stage, the Congress was actually in power. There were stories in the media. So it isn't as though the BJP thought of it suddenly on the eve of a budget session just as a means of making the Congress feel uncomfortable. I don't know what the truth is. The matter is before the courts. But presumably a magistrate seems convinced enough that there is prima facie a case to have issued some notices. Given that the matter is before the courts, given that a magistrate is looking at it, neither you nor I can decide whether it's valid, whether it's invalid, or what there is to it. But I don't think it should distract the Congress. The Congress has not been elected to protect the national heritage. It's been elected to oppose. It should continue to oppose.
Caught on a back foot, the Congress is behaving in a curiously defensive manner, hesitating to lay claim even on some of those initiatives that have now been adopted by the NDA government, such as the PPP and the FDI model in railways, the Aadhaar card, which was first criticized by Modi during the campaign, but now has been adopted by the Modi government, and many other such projects. Other projects include the famous Udhampur-Vaishno Devi railway line, a project that was completed even before the elections began, but the then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh didn't find time to attend the inauguration ceremony. Modi was much more nimble. Modi's personal touch at the induction of the aircraft carrier INS Vikramaditya, which had been commissioned for use in November last year, is another example of his nimbleness. But the icing on the cake is the media centre. This was inaugurated with much fanfare by both Manmohan Singh and Sonia Gandhi in the capital in 2013. But now there is a plaque at the site which credits the inauguration to a former BJP Prime Minister, Atal Bihari Vajpayee. It does look as if the spirit of fight is missing from the Congress. After the elections, despite his massive win, Modi found time to call all the Lok Sabha losers from the BJP and assured them of his support. The Congress MPs who lost are still to hear from their leadership. Tea with Antony just doesn't count. And despite the lack of an institutional introspection, individual leaders have been voicing their interpretations of the massive Lok Sabha loss. Whenever we spoke to people about the reasons for the loss, a lot of you have said it's because of communication problems. We thought they say that you did the policies, but you couldn't communicate them better. So that should be one of the first areas that the Congress should be looking into.
With due respect, I do not agree with that point of view. Communication or perception is the alter ego of reality. You cannot spin a reality beyond a point. After all, perception is about the underlying reality. And the fact is that it was not a crisis of communication. It was really a crisis of credibility. And the inflection point came in the November of 2010 when the telecom wars peaked with the C&AG report, and our inability to handle the fallout of that in terms of the manner in which it hit the credibility of the government, that is what really created the perception problem.
In every sector, the UPA government has done exceedingly well, except on the issue of statecraft. We have failed on the issue of statecraft. We have failed in the perception war. We have failed in the communication war.
But
so otherwise,
which has been ruling for the 3/4 of our independence, or 2/3 at the
we unfortunately did not realize the importance of 24/7 media channels and also the importance of social media. Most of these channels now are taking news of from social media, from Twitters, from tweets. So therefore, we sort of underestimated this.
But with the government opting for a pro-market instead of a populist outlook, as was visible in both the rail and the general budgets announced recently, there is a space for the Congress to hone on to the pro-poor plank.
It's left of centre space, and to some extent the left space has to be taken up by the Congress now. See, the left is a decimated unit entity right now. So under these circumstances, the Congress has to fill up the left space. The Congress has to wait for its best chance, as it came in 2003, 2004, when it could ram home the point that, this is not India shining, but it is dismal Bharat. That it could, really make this difference that, whatever Pramod Mahajan's, whatever L.K. Advani's way of going about the campaign, that this is a great governance of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, but that the poor had been omitted from the entire scheme of things, that was hammered home by the Congress very well. The Congress will have to expect that the same thing will happen this time, because but that the poor had been omitted from the entire scheme of things, that was hammered home by the Congress very well. The Congress will have to expect that the same thing will happen this time, because there is a hint of it in Arun Jaitley's first budget, that probably the trickle-down effect will not happen very easily, that the poor will be left out.
However, does Rahul have the right credibility to champion the cause of the poor, who will soon feel left out by Modi's reformist approach? Because this is the right time for Rahul to articulate the Congress commitment to a right-based economy which caters to the marginalized.
At this point of time, it is very difficult to foresee a Rahul who's championing the cause of the poor, and he's not a proactive person at this point of time. So it's very difficult to understand what Rahul really stands for. How do you define Rahul? Rahul has not been a politician as per definition in the Indian context from 2012, 2011. From the very beginning, he's been kind of standoffish, kind of aloof. So obviously Rahul has to mingle with the crowd, with the Congress leaders much more. And I think there are openings, there will be openings in the future where the BJP will start making mistakes, where the BJP will go away from the poor and will take up policies which are too right-wing in nature, and then only I think Rahul will make his mark. And then only, probably guided by Sonia Gandhi, Rahul will make his mark. And that will be of important interest to see how the people respond to that. That Rahul image will probably be much better than what we can understand of him now.
What also must be worrying is the alacrity with which some Congress leaders chose to ride the Modi wave. Some did it covertly, some openly, like Shashi Tharoor, who tweeted in Modi's favour as soon as the latter came to power. This had red-faced Congress leaders rushing to declare their loyalty to the party. What do you make out of the Shashi Tharoor's change of stance?
Well, Shashi Tharoor is, maybe he's worried about what could happen to him on the Suranda murder. It was a murder. I will say on television for you that he didn't commit the murder. But he should have a pretty fair idea who did. And it's a scandal. I mean, she may have been anything, you can call her all kinds of names. But the fact is that she has a right to life.
But are you also one of the few who converted, like Shashi Tharoor and some others?
Like what?
Who have been converted towards Modi's way of life?
No, listen, I have never agreed to his style of functioning, nor I will ever do that in this life at least. Because I know the leopard can't change his spots. Modi remains what he was, and he would continue to do so. It's only a matter of time before the nation realizes it.
You seem to be one of the last congressmen standing who's trying. A lot of your colleagues have, kind of switched over to the other side, some publicly, some making secret overtures.
Well, I've never been afraid of standing on my own. Now, I have always been extremely worried about the emergence and now the coronation, as they called it, of Narendra Modi. And I believe that it is the duty of every congressman not to fall in with this kind of empty praise, but to be ever vigilant, so that when Modi's Reichstag moment comes, as it came when he got Godhra, at that moment we are ready and prepared to go in to do battle for the idea of India.
Despite the drastic defeat, Rahul could still fashion a comeback for himself. After all, in 1996, when Sonia Gandhi took over as party chief, the Congress served a long stint in power until 2004. And that was the time when Sonia honed her leadership skills. For a stint in opposition is much easier than a stint in government. So Rahul could take his cue from her, but for that he would have to move from the back benches to the front benches and start delivering.